Hello book lovers! Today I'd like to share with you two very different but equally gorgeous approaches to presenting Jane Austen's classic novel Pride and Prejudice, with letters and other ephemera that you can actually pull out and read to help immerse yourself in the setting and story. I have to confess that these types of books are a particular collecting focus of mine because I'm fascinated by the ways that tactile elements are incorporated into print media. It's something that still can't yet be replicated by electronic books. Let's start with this edition, which is part of the Marjolein Bastin's Classics series. This series also includes Emma by Jane Austen, as well as Jane Eyre by Charlotte Brontë, presented in the same style. Marjolein is a highly regarded Dutch nature artist, also known as the creator of Vera the Mouse and Hallmark's nature sketchbook line. This particular book design was in fact originally published in Germany in 2018, and it's just been released in English. It's one of the books I included in my most anticipated list for 2021. The book is bound in linen textured paper. The flowers on the cover are embossed, and there are points of gold foiling that's scattered across the design. It's a beautifully tactile publication. The pages are securely bound and smith sewn, and a convenient scarlet ribbon bookmark has been bound into the spine as well. The books in this series are beautifully brought to life with Marjolein's delightful nature illustrations and decorative chapter capitals throughout. These simple watercolour illustrations really lovingly capture the beauty of nature, with flowers and butterflies and leaves and bees frolicking through on almost every page. It absolutely brings to mind the idea of an old book your grandmother might have lovingly filled with pressed flowers. The pages are medium weight and it's a very readable layout and size. But of course, the really special feature of this edition is all the fun removable ephemera that comes with the book. I try not to show absolutely every part of a book in my reviews because I think if you buy it yourself, it's nice to have a couple of surprises to look forward to. But just so you know, there are 10 removable pieces included with the book, and I'll show you here some of my favourites. These pieces of ephemera are loose and have been slipped in between pages by hand, so it's nice to know that when they appear, they've been quite thoughtfully placed in the book. The dance card, for example, is inserted during a dance scene, and you'll find the letter exactly where it occurs in the story as well. You can tell that each piece has been carefully chosen to make sure it will help transport you to Regency England where the story's set. The other edition I'd like to review today is the Letters edition of Pride and Prejudice, curated by Barbara Heller. This is one I included in my Best of 2020 review. This is another incredibly special edition that includes 19 removable pieces of correspondence between the characters of the novel. On all of these pieces are reproductions of actual handwritten letters. I'll explain how they were made in a moment. First of all, this one has quite an interesting binding. The cover's paper with lovely gilded writing and peacock feathers featuring prominently in the design. Internally, each page section is divided by a thin piece of board, and this is so the whole book can sit neatly in a shelf without warping due to the weight of the many letters that are slipped inside special sleeves bound throughout the text block. The end papers feature a pretty peacock pattern, which harks back to a very famous peacock binding of Pride and Prejudice from 1894 designed by Hugh Thompson, who was one of the most popular Victorian illustrators of his time. The pages are quite thin, almost like Bible paperweight, and the text is relatively small, so I'll just show you a very quick comparison here of the text between the two editions so you can see what I mean. But really the key feature of this edition is the letters it contains, and the letters themselves are in fact printed on quite sturdy, heavier weight paper that's even been artificially aged. Letters are such an important part of the Pride and Prejudice novel, and interestingly most scholars agree that the manuscript actually originated as an epistolary novel called First Impressions, that was composed entirely of letters between the characters. So an edition like this, with all the letters in it, is really a perfect fit for the novel. The letters themselves have been rendered by professional calligraphers at the New York Society of Scribes. Each letter has been prepared with different handwriting according to its author, which as far as possible lines up with the descriptions in the novel itself. For example, Miss Bingley lauds Darcy for his even handwriting, while Caroline Bingley's writing is described as particularly flowing. But Heller's gone much further than this in her search for authenticity. Honestly, everything in the letters is incredibly carefully considered. The texts include occasional flaws, so they resemble letters written by real people, and they are even accurately folded for the time period. Since letters at the time weren't usually sent in envelopes, they were specially folded in a way that protected the contents and were traditionally sealed with wax. You can see lots of little period details. There is a medial S, which are those S's that look like F's, and that actually has its own fascinating history that I'll include in the description box rather than heading off a tangent here. And you have the stamps from the sender's postmaster and the arrival stamp, and even the cost, which was based on how far the letter had to travel and was originally paid by the recipient, not the sender. She spent several months at the Morgan Library in New York City going through its archive of English correspondence from this time period and selected handwriting examples that best captured the essence of the different characters. For example, Mr. Darcy's handwriting is based on a series of letters from the Duke of Kent, who was Queen Victoria's father, written to General Frederick Wetherell. And the writing of Mr. Gardiner, the Bennet sisters' uncle, is based on the hand of Robert Southey, who was Poet Laureate of England for 20 years. And our heroine, Elizabeth Bennet's handwriting, well, that's quite fittingly drawn from Jane Austen's own handwritten letters. Because only some of the letters appear in the novel in their entirety, Heller's also written original material to flesh out those that are provided only in extract or whose contents were paraphrased in the text. I think her painstaking work here really shines, as the letters absolutely do reflect the personality of the characters, and the writing is believably part of an Austen novel. All in all, it's a fascinating addition to an Austen collection, and it offers new and interesting elements to entice you into rereading a classic. And if you love this edition, you'll be as thrilled as I was to hear that Barbara's apparently working on a similar lettered edition of Little Women. Now, I've added links below in the description box to the editions in this video, along with the rest of the Marjolein Bastin series if you're interested in tracking down some copies. And as always, there's more information on my website as well. Thank you for watching, and if you're interested in finding beautiful books that you can afford to build your own library with, please do subscribe and hit the notification bell, because I'm a bit random and when I post, and notifications are really the best way to see when I've got something new to share. Now, I know a lot of people have several copies of Pride and Prejudice, so you're definitely invited to share your favourite editions in the comments. And please also do let me know if you'd be interested in me making a list of all the books I have in my collection with these sorts of removable ephemera, as I'm happy to do that if there's some interest as well. Till next time, bye!